Good morning. It is Tuesday, May 4th, 2021, and I'm going to call the Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Please stand if you are able and join in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Due to the ongoing pandemic, we are continuing to limit the number of people within our public meeting room and are offering access to our public meetings via Zoom, which is allowed under Code Section 21.8.1. With that, is there a motion to adopt today's agenda?
So moved.
A second. Then moved by Merkin, seconded by Faisal. Merkin? Aye. Faisal? Aye. Evans? Aye. Now's the time for public comment number one. The comment period is for the public to address topics on today's agenda. If there's anyone who'd like to make public comment, please, and you're on Zoom, please raise your hand or hit *9 if you're on the phone to unmute yourself. And we'll just check through to see if there's anyone who would like to make comments. Not seeing any, we will close public comment number one. Next, we're going to move on to, we have a proclamation regarding a moment of silence for the first COVID-19 death at Mary Greeley Medical Center, May 4th, 2021. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has had an unprecedented impact on the people of Story County, and whereas the pandemic has changed how each of us goes about our daily lives, and whereas more than 11,000 Story County residents have tested positive for COVID-19 since the beginning of the pandemic, and
whereas nearly 50 of these people have lost their lives to the virus, and many more have faced serious illness, extended hospitalization, and lasting health concerns. And whereas on May 4, 2020, Mary Greeley Medical Center lost its first patient to COVID-19. And whereas to commemorate those lost to the virus, Mary Greeley will observe a 1-minute moment of silence on Tuesday, May 4th at 1:30 p.m.
And whereas all residents of Story County are invited to participate in this moment of silence. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Story County Board of Supervisors, do hereby proclaim a moment of silence for the first COVID-19 death at Mary Greeley Medical Center on May 4th, 2021 at 1:30 p.m.
And encourage all residents to participate in this moment of silence.
thank you. And I hope that all will partake in that moment of silence this afternoon.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move on. We have a agency report from Mid-Iowa Community Action. I see Josie on. I'm not sure if Clarissa is on as well.
Both of them should be on.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just seeing if Josie or Clarissa's on.
I was worried for a second. Hi, Clarissa won't be here, but Megan Thompson is here, should be here representing our health department.
Yep, we're just getting her unmuted.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Good morning.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, it took me a minute there to get everything going.
Good morning. Now, we do have your report, so just wondering if there are areas that you'd like to review or highlight for the board.
No, everything should be in the report. I guess I'll just reiterate that we are still responding, pivoting our services in response to COVID-19 pandemic. We're really trying to, as far as the family development side in our pantry, we're really trying to continue to offer delivery. And I think it's been a cool thing that we will probably continue to do in years to come, just to make sure that everybody who is needing food has access to it as easily as possible. So it's been a really cool and fun thing to try and do. In general, our offices are now open. We don't have the locked doors anymore like we did last year at this time. They're open for families to come and pick up documents as they need, drop off documents as they need. And I think we're slowly transitioning to more work with families. I believe our home visiting programs that are able to, per their funding sources, will start doing maybe outdoor visits. So we're continuing just to adjust as we need to and move forward how we can. And that's all I really had to say. Megan can go, and then we can answer any questions if there's any.
Yeah, Megan Thompson, I'm the Health Services Coordinator, so I can give a quick overview of our health services at MICA. Really kind of the same as what Josie said. We're kind of transitioning, trying to open our doors up and see more people in person. Our WIC program has been following the USDA waivers, which waive in-person visits. So those actually have been extended through August, but June 1st, we are going to start opening up all of our in-person appointments for WIC, maternal health and child health. So we'll be transitioning and seeing more participants that way. We have seen an increase in Story County families utilizing our WIC program. We're probably just over 100. We've seen an increase of about 100 more families in the last 9 months utilizing WIC. Our First Five program has also seen an increase in referrals. So that program provides developmental support, works with primary care providers and getting kiddos connected to early intervention. And as kids have been kind of catching up with those well child visits, we are seeing an increase in some speech delays, developmental delays. And so we're just working to get kiddos reconnected to services. The Story County General Clinic did transition to primary health care, which is open now in Ames. So we've been getting all of the patients from Story County General Clinic, their records transitioned to primary health care so they can continue care. And our iSmile dental vouchers and fluoride programs, we've been doing a lot of work with local dentists to just make connections, because we know that kiddos have missed appointments and the rate of decay is increasing. So making a lot of good connections with local dentists who will accept our vouchers and be able to see those kids that we know will be walking through our doors on June 1st and need some dental treatment. So that's kind of where we're at for health services. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you both. Supervisors?
This is Linda Merkin. I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I read both reports, and I really appreciate that you put activity data, you put numbers in your reports as to how many people you served. And not everybody does that. You know, sometimes we just get descriptions but don't really get an idea of, you know, what the activity level is. So I appreciate you doing that, and I urge you to continue to keep that information. And I don't know if you have any other outcome kind of data that you'd want to, you know, be able to longer range outcome data that you collect. If so, I'd be interested in seeing that in future reports. And I'm not sure how you would do that, but if you have some, I'm always interested in saying, what do you know about the long-term effects of your program on success? So, thank you. Good report.
Did you have any questions?
Yeah, this is Latifa. I was just wondering, the child health services, the telehealth, is that do you expect that to continue on, or is that going to have to stop soon?
Yeah, that will continue for a while. We know we're just following that WIC waiver that waives that in-person appointments. So we will see many families probably starting June 1st, but we will have that. We'll continue that option for families that don't feel comfortable or have children or family members that are immunocompromised and they would prefer to do that telehealth visit. We'll continue that as long as we can, as long as those waivers, those USDA waivers are in place, and as long as we're able to continue that, because I think that is important for some families. Yeah.
So you'd be limited in your ability to provide that as just an option for people by the WIC requirements. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, we don't know. It's kind of a month by month what's going to happen with that. I would think that some things would change, and I can see that being an ongoing option. I think there might probably be some special requirements families have to meet to be able to utilize that telehealth ongoing, but we're following along, and we're happy to accommodate and utilize that. It has been really beneficial for families. We do know families miss coming in and they miss those direct services as well, but for some families it really is the best option right now. So we're going to try to continue that probably as long as we can.
Thank you. The energy assistance, the 1,058 LIHEAP applications, is that an increase? Are you seeing like?
No, I know across, I don't know specific what this was last year off the top of my head. I could find that out. I do know across because this is just in Story County, I know across our agency and our 5 core counties, our overall applications for LIHEAP are down than they were last year, which is interesting.
Interesting. Hopefully good. That's all I had. Thank you.
Great. I just had a question for you. So with the pandemic and having to go to the virtual visits, what was your family sustainability? Did you see a big drop in families, or did many of them pretty much continue on, although this is in this new mode for interaction?
Many of our families for health services stayed on, and we saw an increase in WIC, and our WIC and our child health services are so integrated that those are shared families receiving the same services there. So we actually saw an increase and had a pretty good, ability to reach families, and those summer and fall months, families really appreciated having someone to kind of call and check in and make sure they had the resources they need because things were changing so much. And so we were really able to kind of keep pretty consistent caseloads in most of our programs.
Great, thank you. And I should say, in full disclosure, I do serve on the board for LICA. So I do have your annual reports and stuff as well, and appreciate the additional information you've provided here this morning.
And the food delivery service is fantastic. I'm so glad that you guys were able to get that figured out and that you're planning to continue that, because it makes a huge difference for families and people.
Definitely.
Any other questions? No? Well, thank you both for being here this morning and for providing the information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on the agenda, looks like we have consideration of the April 27th, 2021 minutes.
And I wasn't at the meeting, so I probably should not make a motion.
Okay,
Move approval of the minutes.
I will second. Basil?
Aye.
Hens, aye. Merkin?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay. Next, we have consideration of personnel actions.
I'd move approval of personnel actions as presented.
Second.
Been moved by Merkin, seconded by Basil. Merkin?
Aye.
Basil?
Aye.
Hens, aye. Anything being pulled from consent today?
No.
Nope.
No.
No, thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move approval of consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Been moved by Basil, seconded by Merkin. Basil?
Aye.
Merkin?
Aye.
Hens, aye. So move on, we have no public hearing items. So we're under additional items. We have discussion and consideration of new PPE safety programs for Story County to be implemented for all departments and offices. Todd, good morning, Todd.
Good morning, board. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So we've got these 3 PPE programs moving forward with hand safety, eye and face safety, and then foot safety. We as a safety committee have been working together to get these documents created and having questions across any department or office answered. And these are what we have presented in the same format as the other safety programs. And just wanted to have these presented before the board. get these implemented to get it formulated across the county. So.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
So Todd, the way I read these is they just give a kind of framework, and department heads are responsible for determining how these policies relate to their department when the PPE is necessary. Do you review that then? Is that
Well, yes. So we use the hazard awareness program that we've implemented, and from that program, we created a job safety analysis for each task that's undertaken. And from that JSA, it identifies the PPE that is then needed to undertake that task. And that's how each department and office is able to verify that they have the right PPE on hand for the task that their employees are undertaking.
Thank you.
Questions? Any other questions? Supervisor Merkin?
No, I don't, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Just wanted to make sure I was clear on this. Yeah, it looks like, Todd, if I'm reading this, when I initially looked at it too, is the policy in place, but you're doing a lot of some updating in here as well. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, you broke up on that, Lisa. I couldn't hear you.
Sorry, I said, looks like this was the kind of policy pad, but you're doing some updating in regards to the three programs, the hand, foot, eye, and face. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, some of the departments and offices have their own, and they're able to use their own still and move forward with that. But this is for everyone else, or for them to incorporate pieces of into their own to make it their own. There are boxes, yeah, within it, so they can update it for their specific department or office.
Great, thank you.
So when the footer says revision 1, it means it's really the first policy that we've approved, not a revision of an existing policy, correct?
It is the first policy being created by the risk manager for the county, yes.
I think that's
why Supervisor Hedges was asking. It says revision, and maybe she was making the assumption on her too that there's an existing policy being revised, but what it means is it's the first policy. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. You clarified it, so that's fine. Okay. Is there a motion?
I would move, are we looking at all three policies? I would move approval of the new PPE safety programs for Story County to be implemented for all departments and offices, specifically the three documents, eye and face, foot protection, and hand protection.
Right, second.
Been moved by Merkin, seconded by Faisal. Merkin?
Aye.
Faisal?
Aye.
Evans? Aye. Great. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, board.
We have discussion and consideration of county printing practices as they relate to the managed print contract. Good morning, Barb.
Good morning, board. Am I coming through okay?
Yes.
And I realize this board was not in place when the managed print solution was implemented in 2015-16. Would you like me to go over a little bit of the background on that?
Sure.
So prior to the managed print solution, Story County did have a contract with Premier, onesie, twosie copiers everywhere, but then we also had a mixture of personal printers that all shapes, sizes, ages, and it made support a nightmare. A lot of driver issues that didn't cooperate with software. You could spend all day trying to fix a small printer and find out it was a problem with the fuser or the drum, which was a $300 charge. It was about the same cost as a new printer. So Paul Toot advised me to look into streamlining this for the county and trying to find some cost savings. So we did put out an RFP, and we had several vendors come in and look at building diagrams and schematics, and then they strategically outlined where our copier printers should be placed and how we could get rid of so many of these smaller onesie-twosie printers and really achieve a good cost savings and streamline the support and make things easier for everyone. So after careful evaluation, we did come up with a vendor, and in 2016 entered a 5-year contract. So we're at the point now where we're getting ready to send out a new RFP as the contract is ending at the end of this year, and wanted to make sure that we're still following the correct direction. And recently we've had a couple more requests for personal printers, and I want to get the board to weigh in on this. And is this the direction we want to continue? And if so, the more printers we add onto a contract, the lower the price is for everyone. So I hate to add personal printers at this point when we could be putting them under contract next year and achieving a good cost savings for the entire county. So that's why I'm here with the board to ask for direction and get your opinion on this matter.
Barb, this is Lisa, I've got a question for you initially. So what you're saying is if you're looking at to the next fiscal year, whenever the contract is up, you could add additional printers and it would be less costly?
Correct. What we've done as printing needs have come up and we've added printers to the current contract, they extrapolate it. So the cost is still for the 5-year contract, even though you entered in year 3. And so that cost would be a lot higher now than that same printer will be when we enter the new contract, because then it will have the full 5 years for them to recoup the cost of that printer, if that makes sense. So adding personal printers right now, to me, doesn't make sense. And I haven't approved any, although a couple have arrived and we've been asked to install those. You need admin rights to install anything on the network. So IT was asked, and I'm like, maybe we should talk to the board about this, because I don't feel comfortable adding 2 new printers, 6 months from getting into a new contract.
So Barb, when you talk about a personal printer, are you talking about a printer that's just in somebody's private office and is usually used by only one person?
Correct, yes.
As we have in the Board of Supervisors office, a printer, copier, scanner, whatever, that everybody just uses.
Yes.
What are the reasons that people or certain offices are doing this? What is the rationale for the need?
There was no reason given for the 2 recent requests. I know in the past, some of the reasons have been security, can't leave the desk, too far to walk to a printer.
Do we have any places that are so spread out that that's an issue, or somebody physically is not able to make it to a printer?
When we did the evaluation of the printing needs, we did look at the overhead view of the whole buildings, and we did this for Justice Center, HSC, and the admin building. And I believe the copiers were placed in areas where, number one, it was the heaviest printing needs, and number two, very easily accessible. And we did move some network cables so that we could get, they all, of course, required network access. So we did do some rewiring, but I believe the copier printers were put in locations that made the most sense.
And what about the issue of security?
Well, as far as security is concerned, there is an option on most copier printers, and we were asked this when they were installed, like if you need to print something securely and you don't feel comfortable with it sitting on the copier until you can get there, there is a way to set up a security code so that the device or the print job that you sent does not print until you are at the printer and type in the code. And then that job that was saved under your name will print. So as far as security goes, there is that option that you can have that security feature built in so that if you do have something you don't want anyone else to see, it can wait until you're ready for it to print.
And Barb, what is the cost differences? You said it is less costly if you had additional printers. What are we looking at cost-wise?
It depends on the printer itself. A smaller printer, I know there was one that went in for, the 911. She went in mid-contract and hers is $28 a month. So if she were to have entered into at the beginning of the contract, it would have been probably $20, $18 a month. It's hard to say because you pay for the printer and then you pay a certain amount for copies. So, depending, and we've got large all-in-ones, we've got smaller models if they're in a smaller area. So I can't really give you a price per device.
I think probably one of the costs that we might be seeing is if you're talking about getting departments buying different printers, you've got to have your staff troubleshooting a whole bunch of different kind of equipment as opposed to standardized equipment. And that's going to take more time because it's also more devices. And it's, I would assume, going to take time away from other things that they need to be doing.
Correct. And part of this came from the fact that before the managed print solution was implemented, we were spending up to 70% of our time just troubleshooting printer issues. Now, right now, the vendor does send out a technician if there's a printer issue. However, if there's a paper jam or something simple, we can take care of that and it doesn't take a lot of time. It's the huge things like replacing parts and trying to look up the part number and trying to find it online and finding it back ordered. Those were the things that took so much time for us.
So Barb, is the issue that departments are purchasing printers that are not part of the Marco contract and asking them to be installed, or is it that and that departments are wanting an additional printer in the middle of the contract period?
It's that they're purchasing them and wanting them installed and not wanting to participate in the contract. And I feel torn because I'm supporting the contract, but I'm also supporting the users.
Do we know why they're not wanting to work with Marco, or is it more they didn't? Okay, there's a message. Cost for smaller printer through the Marco contract at $18 a month is $1,080 for 5 years.
Who's that from?
That's from Connie Torstow.
Pardon? Yeah. So I think Connie is saying it's cheaper just to purchase an individual printer.
That includes toner, everything. The Marco cost includes toner except for printing
And maintenance.
So you'd have to look at any repairs, like we do, and how long the printers are gonna cost.
Sure.
And they did that. I mean,
And really, equipment nowadays may last a couple years, which if you get your equipment through a vendor, they're responsible for it. We're not. So if the equipment does fail after a year, we can feel confident it will be replaced at no charge.
Are you okay by asking me a question? Connie, I see your hand raised and I'm not sure if you're just typing in or if you were wanting to make a comment.
what number is she again?
I think she's raised 7210, isn't she's the one that had her hand raised?
7458 is her correct line.
Okay, 74, there we go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Connie.
Perfect, thank you.
So I was just trying to figure out, I saw your hand raised and then I saw typing going in the chat area.
I was hoping I would have a chance to talk, but I wanted to watch the board meeting anyway because I wanted to hear what other people had to say. and I knew there's PowerPoints and stuff like that. So that's why you have me in two places.
Got you. So were you wanting to add some additional information in regards to the printer question?
Yes, the Brother personal printer that I have purchased for through Staples. I have one for myself and one for Commander Bresenio's office, and they were $130. They are replacing a printer. Commander Bresenio had a laser jet or an inkjet printer that took forever, and that printer was 10 plus years old, and we wanted to get away from the inkjet because it's not proficient. And the printer I had was 6.5 years old, and I looked and we purchased that in November of 2014. And for $130, I don't need a little personal printer in my office to spend $1,000 on at $18 a month when this one for $130 is probably going to last me a long time. Very rarely, if we have a paper jam, we can fix those ourselves. Very rarely do we ask Justin, unless it's a communication problem between the printer and the network, do we have him fix little things like that. I will say the two printers we have in the front office that our support services staff use, those are used a lot. And we're not going to replace those. We want those to be replaced through the Marco contract because they do have more issues than the little ones we have in our offices.
So the two that you had in your offices, were they under the contract initially or no?
No, they have never been under the contract.
Gotcha.
So how many printers total do you have in the sheriff's office that aren't under the Marco contract?
It would be the ones that are in the commander's offices themselves.
There would be about 15.
15?
Yes.
That are not under the Marco contract?
That are not under Marco or Access. That's not to say that the next vendor won't be Access. We want to combine this. So yes, there are 15 personal printers at the sheriff's office.
And are you being asked to do any kind of maintenance on those other than just connected to the network?
Well, there are some occasional calls, and they are getting older, and I'm wanting to make sure that we're following the contract like it should be followed and doing what the board wants us to do.
It seems like a lot of printers.
Well, I mean, I don't know what their workflow looks like. I mean,
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, they've had the printers longer than the contract. The contract's 5 years old and we've got a printer that's 10 years old. So to me, it's been in place.
There's some under an access.
Could you come up here? We're not,
Yeah.
you're not going to be on the recording.
That's okay. Hey, Barb, can you explain that the sheriff's office did not participate in Marco because they had just signed a new contract and it was not economical to buy out those contracts at that point because they were too new
Correct.
enough?
They had just renewed, and Access Systems has graciously now gone month to month so that they can participate in the RFP when it is sent out and perhaps get all of the printers.
so are those personal printers under the access contract then, or are
Yes. Yes, there's a mixture. There's Marco printers, some Access printer, and then the 15 personal printers. And I do know that when you have a personal printer, you tend to print more than if you print at the all-in-one. And I guess I go back to the whole reason we implemented this solution was not only the support, but the cost savings that it would get the county. And I know even one office in particular, Latifa, I don't know if you remember this, but county attorneys were able to save $30,000 right off the bat. So a printing contract is a good idea. I want to make sure that we all participate and we all try to work toward the cost savings that we can pass along.
Yeah, I do remember that, Barb. You're right. But what I also remember is that there were several smaller printers, and that we had conversations about whether it made sense to keep those printers or not keep those printers. And my program specifically needed that smaller printer because that was where our envelopes were printed and our cards were printed. And so I know that there are reasons, and I know you're not saying that there aren't reasons. I'm just saying, I know there are reasons to have individual printers in specific office spaces. So just trying to kind of make sure that we're not squeezing anybody's ability to do their work.
Correct. And really, the sheriff's office is the only office that has individual printers. We haven't received a lot of requests from anybody else. And I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just stating the fact.
I think it's a good idea that we're talking about it and making sure that we are all on the same page.
And I read your memo that you're seeking direction from the board, even though it's discussion and consideration. You're just wanting to know how the board is feeling about this as you proceed further and have conversations with departments, correct?
Correct. I want to know, does the board think that we should continue, the managed print solution? And if so, should we encourage users, to participate in that and not buy the little personal printers? Or have the managed print vendor make the recommendation? And if, the recommendation is, oh yeah, I think there should probably be a smaller printer here, then I would want to go that way.
You're saying the county attorney's office saved $30,000
Yes.
annually?
It was amazing. We didn't think it, because they had just gotten new copiers. We didn't think it would be that much. And it was eye-opening.
Well, we need to think about convenience and what people need to do their job, but we also need to think about the fact that we're using taxpayer money. And one office, not a small one, but one office is saving $30,000 a year of taxpayer money. To me, I think that's important. And I think that Supervisor Chute was correct when he said, we need to be efficient on this. People want government to be efficient. And I think it's sometimes very easy to think about convenience and how we've always done something and not think about how I might be able to do that and still be efficient, still be, still have the security. I'm glad to know that a job doesn't, you can keep a job like a confidential personnel matter or confidential, informant information, whatever it is, that you can keep that from printing until you actually get to that copier. That's a good feature. I think that on a previous job, I did have a personal printer in my office, and I finally gave it up because I very seldom used it. And I just decided that it was not necessary. You get used to something and it may not really be necessary, and you don't think about how much money you're costing your department that could go to some higher use or better use. So I'm very much in favor of you continuing the direction you've been going.
Yeah, I think the managed print solution contract is a really good idea. I would just say if an individual department is saying that they have a need for a smaller printer, certainly if it's an elected official's office, and Marco is saying they don't need it or they could do X, Y, or Z, if that department or elected official says, well, I want it, we need it, we have reasons for that if they go out and purchase their own printer, there's just the understanding they're not going to receive any support from IT if something goes wrong with it. They'll connect it to the network, but
I don't know if it's possible for IT to connect a printer to our network but not support it.
That's what I was just gonna say, yeah.
I think that that could cause network problems.
To service it. So I can't get it to do this print job that I want it to do.
So then we have a basically non-functioning printer sitting there that somebody's used taxpayer money to buy.
Right, but if it's an elected official's office, they're like,
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of the man print and having that consistency across departments there or whatever. You know, if Marco, if they can provide additional printers at a lower cost, I guess I'd like to know what that is. What would the overall cost be on that? If other departments need additional ones, a little bit more of the reasoning for that versus just whether it's convenient. I mean, convenience is a nice attribute. Don't disagree with that. But are there other things because of the job that they are doing that lends them to needing that printer in that particular location?
I think the only thing that gave me pause was Marco would come in and assess the situation and determine whether it was necessary.
I'm not sure that I heard that. Was that said that Marco decides whether or not a printer is necessary, or does IT decide in conjunction with the department?
What the vendor would do, and once again, I'm not sure it would be Marco, but what the vendor would do was evaluate, and what they did last time, evaluate the printing needs. You know, how much do you think you print? I mean, we had forms we filled out and gave estimates and looked at previous, some of the Premier contracts. So how much did you print? And then they looked at the diagram, and then they also looked at, you know, the security needs, et cetera. So when they came up with a recommendation, it was based on all of that. And, you know, it was a good thing because it made people think, well, gosh, maybe I don't need to have my own printer, and why can't I walk 10 steps to a copier? So I think it was eye-opening. It was a good exercise for us. I'd like to continue it, but I feel like I'm being torn, like we're heading backwards by installing all these personal printers again.
I have one more question for you, Barb. So when the last, I guess, printing assessment was done by Marco or whatever, and went through all the departments determined printing needs, which would have been, what, about 5 years ago? Based on
Yes.
5 years ago? So it sounds like though, I mean, how many additional printers did, I'll use the sheriff's office, did they have 15 at that particular time? So was the determination on the needs at that particular office based on, gosh, they need this, we don't need any more because they've got 15 other small printers? Do you get what I'm saying?
Can you say that again? I guess I didn't quite catch it.
So if the sheriff's office before, so, you know, they've got some printers that are under the Marco contract, and I gather that this is under a different contract for some of these smaller ones. But what I'm saying is, was the determination of Marco saying, oh, well, you only need 1 or 2 kind of joint printers because you already have 15 smaller. We're not saying you need like 4 large ones or joint ones.
Oh, sure.
Because you have 15 already.
The recommendation was to get rid of the small printers. They did feel that, like in the housing area, there should still be an individual printer there because they could not leave their post. But they did recommend eliminating some of the smaller printers and, you know, referencing, well, there's a large copier right here, so you can, you know, print to this. So they did make that recommendation, but we didn't install any printers there because Access System then renewed their contract. So Marco was not able to put printers in there.
As our IT director, you would still have the ability to work with departments, and if they had a darn good reason that they needed a personal computer someplace, to say, okay, yeah, we'll install that one. I mean,
Certainly, yes, definitely.
Tell you what to do in terms of making those decisions. And I guess to me, I would be more comfortable with knowing that discussion had happened, as opposed to just, hey, we bought some printers, come install them.
Correct. Yes.
Right, so, and I know there's give and take there, but I just think that, we are talking about taxpayer money. When I hear the attorney's office save $30,000 annually, I'm saying that's a good amount of money that can go to something else other than having a printer on a credenza in every single person's office or every other person's office. So I'm very comfortable with us giving you direction to proceed as you have been doing.
And really, I'm looking forward to not having two vendors at the sheriff's office. Either, and when we put out the RFP, who knows who will apply? That's kind of a cutthroat business there, and there's a lot of players in the field, so we could achieve a much greater savings by having just one vendor and not two.
I don't have any further questions or comments.
I don't have anything else. Is that enough for you, Barb? Of just
Yes.
Can you just do it as a motion? Because it was discussion and consideration.
Sure.
Yeah, her memo did not ask for that, but I would make a motion that we continue to utilize the managed solution approach.
I would second.
Been moved and seconded. Merkin,
Aye.
Basil,
Aye.
Evans, aye.
Thank you, board. I appreciate your input.
Next, we'll move along to discussion and consideration of Resolution 21-90, the Birchmeier Acres Residential Partial Subdivision. And I saw Marcus on.
Hello, board. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Board, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, let me grab this PowerPoint real quick for you. And can you see this slide?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So before you all this morning is the Birchmeier Acres Residential Parcel Subdivision. The applicant is Dean Reynolds and Stephen Jordaning. It's located in Indian Creek Township. It's in the A1 District, Maxwell Fire, Collins and Maxwell School District, Iowa Regional Utilities Association, Interstate Power, Story County Ambulance, and Indian Creek Watershed. As far as its location, you can see it down there by that yellow star. It's just southwest of the city of Maxwell. There's the full 40 that this subdivision is planning to come from. There is an existing dwelling there that the Birchmeyers reside at. And here is the proposed plat. Lot 1 is the larger lot with 32.12 net acres. It has the existing dwelling and access off of Highway 210. Then proposed Lot 2, which includes a proposal to build a dwelling there, is 5.49 acres, and it has an access off of 640. They applied for an access through the engineers department, and that was granted earlier. There is a stream that flows through the 40-acre, and per our ordinance, they have granted a 30-foot easement on both sides of that stream. As far as the surrounding land uses, it is completely surrounded by the A1 zoning district with 16 parcels located within a half mile. Only 3 of those do contain dwellings, and 12 of them meet the 35-acre minimum for construction of a single-family dwelling within the A1 district. There's the applicable regulations for residential parcel subdivision, which are met. As far as comments, Stark County Engineering, just throughout this process, wanted to make sure that they knew if any new accesses off of Highway 210, they would have to go through the Iowa DOT. I did not receive any comments from surrounding property owners from the notice that was sent. And City of Maxwell is located within 2 miles and will be taking action on their June 7th meeting. The city was initially going to consider at their May meeting. However, there was an oversight in posting it to the agenda, and the subdivision cannot be recorded until Maxwell takes that action. So the applicant, everybody involved knows that, and once we receive that resolution, provided that you all approve it, then we will have it recorded. As far as the analysis goes, went through here, all the requirements for residential parcel subdivision plat are met. Property owners are proposing to divide that parcel totaling 37.57 to create another buildable lot. And there are those plans for a new dwelling there, and the stream easement was submitted. Any further divisions of lots created through the residential parcel subdivision, though, are not permitted. With that being said, planning and development staff recommends the approval of the Birchmire Acres subdivision as proposed, and there are your other options as well. You can take any questions if you have them.
Couple. Is this a named creek or is this a drainage ditch?
It is, I think they're listed.
But just above where it says lot 2, does that say CL or CL?
Yeah, drainage. Yeah.
So there's a 60-foot easement on each side, which allows for, what is that in right now? Is that in some kind of a, grasses? You know?
Yeah, so what is it right now? You can see in that image there, just kind of natural growth around that area.
And the other question I had is, are the applicants related? Or is this just a sale of a house lot?
To my knowledge, Reynolds and Birchmire aren't related, to my knowledge.
I know the intent of this, the ordinance that allows this was primarily, when it was originally put together, to allow adult children to for parents to do a subdivision of some land and have a buildable lot for adult children to return to the farmstead. This is something different than that, and I don't know that our ordinance says that's got to be the purpose, but...
Our ordinance does not state that it has to be within family.
Okay, but you would not disagree that was kind of the intent of the ordinance to begin with? You weren't here, but...
I was, unfortunately, I was not here.
I did have some discussion about it the other day. Okay, so it does not require that specific situation in the ordinance, okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
I do not have any other questions. No additional questions at this particular time.
Need a motion?
Sure.
I would move that we approve resolution 2190, residential parcel subdivision plat, Birchmire Acres subdivision as submitted.
Second.
That moved and seconded by Merkin. Any additional comments? Basil?
Aye.
Merkin?
Aye.
Heddens? Aye.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, next we're moving along to consideration of C2C plan annual review evaluation criteria and potential timeline.
Sorry.
Yep.
Okay, so
I was trying to see whose hand was raised. Who's that hand raised? There's a here.
1931.
So I don't know if it was for the last agenda item or.
I don't know. I don't know who it is.
Why don't you ask?
Can I ask who is, I'm just trying to think of their hand raised. I can't see the number from here.
5209031.
9031 is the last four digits of the number.
We type it in the chat.
They're unmuted. So 515-290-9031, I think that is it.
Yes, this is Stephen Jordaning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
And I've been listening in and been unable to get unmuted until this moment, and it may be after the fact, but as an informational bit on the subdivision of Birchmire Flats, the applicant to Dean Reynolds, the applicant to build the new house, is a parent of the owners of the other parcel.
Okay,
So
thank
the parties
you.
are related.
Gotcha.
Okay, I appreciate knowing that, since that was my question.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Yep.
Journey.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I was trying to get it in time, but now you have it anyway. So
Thank you. Thank you.
now, how do I remute?
We'll take care of it on our end.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks for noticing that.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to, no, and I looked up before too and didn't see it, so
Well,
good thing
it
you
was-
caught it.
Marcus was sharing his presentation, so I was missing the participant screen. So the item that's before you, actually, had we not had COVID, we would have been here last fall. The Cornerstone to Capstone Plan, when it was adopted in June 2016, was adopted with a provision that would be reviewed on an annual basis. That, again, would start normally each fall, but COVID did delay it, so we're coming forward at this point. Just some background, the C2C, as I said, was adopted in June 2016. Later that year, the implementation matrix was adopted in November. So they go hand in hand. And so when we do the annual review, we look at both the plan and then the implementation matrix. The project team members, our staff members, includes Darren Moon, Michael Cox, Sandra King, Amelia Schoenemann, and Leanne Harder and Matt Boyd, and then any planners that Amelia would have involved in the process as well. So what I have before you is kind of the process overview and the timeline that we've put together. The process and the evaluation criteria has been the same every year that we've done this. That's on the second half of the information. Basically what we do at a staff level, and then we do involve the board on as we go further in, is we look at the plan and the matrix, and we look at all the goals, all the recommendations. We ask three key elements. Is it accomplished? Is it still relevant? And is it a high priority for the year? So that's really an implementation matrix component. We go through each, and if there's restatements, goals, tasks that need to be done at staff level, we restate that, and then eventually next fall it would come before the board for adoption as revised. One key element we do look for as well is what may be missing. Again, knowing the plan is now 5 years old. It's intended to be a 20 to 30 year planning horizon, but we need to keep it knowing that it's evolving constantly. The plan does say that every 5th year, or as deemed necessary, the key indicators, and that's the background information, the demographics, the socioeconomic information, that's all in the appendix of the plan, that those are reviewed. So really, we're on that 5th year. Unfortunately, we don't have the census information quite yet. So that we're gonna have to be a little flexible with that. But I do know we need to start building in that, looking at key indicators.
So the process, we've actually kind of kicked it off before coming because I wanted to get some feedback from the project team I've already mentioned. Today's action by the board is to consider the evaluation criteria, the process, and the timeframe. Then on the staff level, we'll meet to review potential modifications, work on drafting revisions, and then taking it back to joint meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Conservation Board, and the Board of Supervisors. That's how we've done it each and every time, and I think it is a very fruitful approach and beneficial. One, it consolidates meetings for everyone, but then it allows for some interesting dialogue and information sharing. With that, I'm going to stop and ask, are there any questions on what I presented thus far?
So would you be delayed with this? I know you said you need some more flexibility because I don't think the census is anticipated till later August.
Right.
Looking at your timeline here, are you anticipating you might have to adjust your timeline because of this, because of that?
I'd like to say no, but I think we might. That's where the flexibility is going to be key.
Okay.
I think we have enough on, if we look at workforce, for example, we have enough information in that regard. If we want population, we don't. But if we look at housing, obviously we just received the final draft of the housing assessment. We can move forward in that realm. The work we've been doing on the watershed assessments, we can look on that as well. But it's that there are some pieces that are going to be a little bit slower and behind. And I really don't want to delay that for an entire year because the key indicators are such a framework of the C2C plan. So with that, the proposed timeline just needs to be that, a proposed timeline. With the pressures outside dictating it a little bit more than I would hope.
Sure.
Are you done presenting? I have a comment
Yeah, I'm done.
that I would like the team to consider, and it's when you look at the general review questions. I look at those first few and recall several times that we have done something in terms of the zoning request where we have gone back and amended the C2C plan. And I think, I don't know how we get away from doing that, but I think we need to because we don't have a plan. If we say we have a plan, this is what we're going to do with land use, and then a zoning request comes in, we say, well, to do that, we have to amend the C2C, so let's go amend the C2C. And I think we've done some great damage on that.
Yeah,
I
that's
really want the team to look at that issue and figure out how we stay with our plan and don't divert off. Maybe it's resist that temptation to please people. So let's say, let's go change a plan that we thought was a good idea at the time and still might be.
And on the flip side, there may be areas of the plan that as staff we identify do need some changes made.
There may.
Based on the trends that we've been experiencing.
I don't know what that's the question. What does that tell us that we've done that so many times? And it could tell us various things, and I would like the group to look at that issue.
And one piece I failed to mention, but the Ames over French plan is an adopted component of our C2C plan. As the board knows, that process will be, the review of that will kick off as well, I think later this summer or spring, I'm not sure exactly, but that will have to be folded in too. So we're going to have several things coming at this process in different fashions. We just need to get this kicked off though and get started because we are delayed and kind of almost doing two at one time, 2 annual reviews at one time. And then, I mean, if there are any other general review questions or areas you want us to look at, like I said when I began, if there's anything you think there's missing, that's information staff would like to know. Not necessarily today. Again, the board will be part of the process to receive the feedback forms.
If we think of something, should we email it to you? Should we email it to the team? Should we wait for a board meeting to raise the suggestion or
That's
question?
a good question. I think probably the easiest way is to email it to me and I can share it with everyone because I'll be the keeper of the main files. And then I do intend to keep the board updated as we go forward, just because we did miss that key year. And really 2021 is meant to be that 5th year of this plan, but it's a little bit more heightened review than just an annual review.
I also know the planning and development is working on zoning ordinance changes.
There's a comment from Amelia. I don't know if you guys want.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and give a comment then?
She wrote it in the chat. It looks like.
I just didn't want you to miss.
Yeah, thank
No,
you.
appreciate that.
Can somebody read that?
Our department plans on assessing rezoning and which required C2C plan amendments to get a better idea of trends. Thanks for bringing it up.
Good, thank you. And I know you're also working on your zoning ordinance, so I think there's going to be a lot of connections there. So.
I can allow her to talk if you want to.
Sure, if she has anything else to add. Good morning, Amelia.
Good morning. No, I agree that, a necessary part of, the analysis of our C2C plan in this process is looking at what amendments have been made and how those compare with rezonings that we've seen. And also what Leanne said, looking at if there's areas that, the plan isn't really accounting for. For instance, when we have an agribusiness zoning district, there's always some question of, does that need a C2C plan amendment, or does it actually fit within the agriculture conservation area? So that is something we will be looking at, and I appreciate your attention to that this morning as well.
Great, thank you.
So following up to today, I'm having a hard time talking. I will be putting all this evaluation criteria into the format that the team can use. I'll share that with the board. And then I'll probably just do a monthly report back to the board and keep you up to date as to what's going on. And definitely the key to this plan has always been how flexible it has been, flexible yet providing guidance, willing to adapt to the change. And obviously, when we drafted in 2016, or when it was finally adopted in 2016, didn't envision a pandemic, didn't envision what we experienced as a nation in 2020. It's really pretty silent on climate change and adaptation and resiliency. So, I mean, those are areas if you see something that you think is a gap, this is an opportunity then to really bring it forward. And if it lengthens that process and we have a better product in the long run, I think that's probably what we need to do.
I think that's real interesting to try to make a connection between the C2C and climate change and what things the supervisors can do to encourage both, to encourage landowners to do things that help with soil and water health, and also discourage from some things that happen during development. I think that planning and development has done a good job with the stormwater ordinance, those kind of things. I think we can go further, and I think we need to go further. I'm not sure exactly of what we can incorporate and how far, but I think that if there's more issues looked at during reviews, that would be helpful.
So just some history for the board. This current board, before the C2C plan, we did not have a comprehensive plan. We solely had the land use plan, and that first plan was put in place in 1977, I believe, if I have my dates correct. So venturing into that world of comprehensive planning was a big leap, and that's where it was a direction in which we needed to go. But I think there's still more we can go. But I think that's why we didn't go as far as we could have.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to say, I think incorporating climate action, climate resiliency into our C2C plan establishes it as a priority for us, for the county, just in general, which I think would be a very good thing.
Just at the broader implications. Okay, this says consideration, so do we need a motion? Yeah.
I would move that we accept the plan for the C2C annual review as presented by Manfred.
Annual review criteria and potential timeline.
Yes.
Yes. Been moved and seconded. Merkin?
Aye.
Basil? Aye. Hens? Aye. Thank you, Leanne. Next, we have Community Services Quarterly Report. I'm not sure if Carla's on. Oh, yep, she is.
Good morning, board.
Good morning.
So I don't really have much else to offer from the quarterly report, other than I did want to let you know that next week I've been working with Joby, Sandra and Ethan. We're looking to have the conversation with the board in Mary Greeley Medical Center about their lease renewal for the current property that they lease from the county. And Joby has put together some potential rent estimate costs. So we're just want to give you a heads up that we're working on getting that organized to visit with you guys next week. Mary Greeley is in the process of submitting their resume of care to the Iowa Department of Inspections and Appeals to be able to offer the subacute services. So that is underway. Do you have any questions on my report or anything outside of the report?
I guess I have one question, Carla, is that since you've opened your doors, and I know there was an initial concern, I know DHS are taking some calls and stuff now, but are you seeing still a number of people coming down to your office area seeking DHS services, or is that lessened since they're not in their loop with their phones anymore, I guess I would say, and able to assist folks when they.
You bet. We had actually had a building committee meeting last week and touched base with all the offices in the building. And we have had a few individuals come down to our office that were seeking DHS services. Our staff were able to work with them and get them connected with what they needed through DHS. So it's not been unmanageable by any means. It's just kind of sporadic. And even before the pandemic, we would sometimes have folks that would come into our office that we needed to refer back upstairs. So all in all, I would say that things are working pretty well, Lisa.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any additional questions? No. Nothing additional. Thank you, Carla, for sticking through our meeting and for the information you've provided us today.
You bet. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks.
Okay, we don't have any other reports, any upcoming agenda items we're aware of. I mean, nope. Okay. Next, we'll move on to public forum number 2, comments from the public on items not on this agenda. The board may not take any action on the comments due to the requirements of open meetings law, but may do so in the future. We'll open up public comments. If there's anyone who'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand on Zoom or press *9 to unmute yourself. We'll kind of peruse through to see if anyone wanted to make public comment. Not seeing any. We'll close public comment number 2. We'll move on to liaison assignments, committee meeting updates and announcements. Supervisor Merkin, do you want to start?
Oh, I sure can. Thank you. Been spending some time this past week or so on continuing to publicize the broadband survey. Amelia Schoenman, Leanne Carter, and Nick Sorensen and the chamber have been working with me on that. We've been taking flyers out. Of the 11 counties, Story is the second highest, I believe, in population. So we're still ahead of Dallas, aren't we? Yeah. And we're a strong second in terms of the number of responses to the survey. But we still want more surveys to be completed from the smaller communities and the unincorporated areas. The next issue of the Sun should have another article in it. That was one that was in the Tribune the other day that explained to everybody that the survey was open till May 14th now. And we do want people to complete that survey, even if they are happy with their broadband, because that tells us where there's good service and where there's not. There were a couple things I just wanted to point out that I thought were really interesting. Last Friday and then repeated on Sunday, Iowa Press was about the issue of rural broadband. Dave Duncan from the Iowa Communication Alliance and Brian Waller from Technology Association of Iowa were on it, and that was a very interesting show. Learned some more on that. Really talk about the question of what's affordable, and some speculation. There's evidently a new mapping project that's going on, and all the service providers have given their input. Hopefully coming out around July 1, there will be new maps. What I'm wanting to do is us get together with our service providers and give those maps a second look, because what we hear sometimes is if there's one person in a census block who has service, that whole census block is counted as covered, and that is a real disservice to people living out in the unincorporated areas. Also, we know there's money going to be coming through the state with the bill that Governor Reynolds just signed, $100 million a year for 3 years, and she's convinced that there's been more federal money that she can add on to that. We'll need to see, I think, what that covers. There's another editorial that I'm going to suggest people look at, and I was a little confused. I found it in the print version of the Register this morning. Did not find it in the online version, but it's Patty Judge, and I believe it's Jeff Link. Is that the person who used to be was Harkin's last staffer? Anyway, they're talking about rural broadband, and they are taking exception with the 100 upload download as being their concern is, and they're looking at rural Iowa and saying if the really standard is 100, that urban areas might take advantage of that have decent speeds now but don't come up to that, but rural areas may still be left kind of in the dust. So I thought that was interesting. I had not thought about that because I thought, oh, that's the future ready, future-proofed fiber, that's such a good thing, but they're saying there may be a downside to that for rural areas if more of that money goes to urban areas that already have decent speeds to get much better speeds, but there are still areas. And I talked to a woman in Roland the other day at the Casey's who lived in rural McCallsburg and said, I don't even have internet. And yes, I did take your survey. I came to the library. And I've heard from various people. So we really need to make sure that the rural areas of Story County get taken care of. So that's it. I have been talking to service providers in the last few weeks. And I'm just going to continue to talk to them because there's a lot to learn on this issue. But I am convinced that it's one of the biggest needs we have in this nation. It's one of the biggest needs we have in Story County, and this is a great opportunity we're going to have to get something done. Excuse me, what's been going on? On the Greater Des Moines Partnership website, where the survey link is, there are also some meetings, some Zoom meetings that are going to take place, which are informational. This Thursday, May 6th at noon, there's a meeting on the rural broadband experience. May 6th at 4 p.m., the challenges of learning from home. And Monday, May 10th, getting care from anywhere, as at 2 p.m., telehealth in central Iowa. So do check, and it's the same link you go to Greater Des Moines Partnership to find the survey. Those are all listed. And I think those are going to be, I think we have those on our website. No, we don't. Sorry. I'm always trying to, and I guess that's another, if we can get some information out because it's there now. That would be good for people. So some other things going on too, but broadband seems to be taking a lot of time. It's a good time. So thank you.
Supervisor Basil.
Oh, yeah, well, as far as the rest of the week, Drainage District meeting tomorrow morning, as well as Public Service Appreciation Lunch, CCMT, and then an Asset Joint Funders meeting tomorrow night. And then High Performance Leadership meeting Thursday afternoon, and then I've got an Alternatives Arrest Diversion Team meeting also on Thursday afternoon, and then another High Performance Leadership Academy meeting on Friday.
Yeah, so I have those as well, the High Performance Leadership Academy on Thursday and Friday with you, as well as the Joint DD, the CCMT, or Public Service Luncheon. I also have a ISAC meeting on Thursday afternoon that are looking at those American Recovery dollars and coming up with some suggestions or guidelines for counties. But right now we are meeting weekly on that, and we're waiting for more direction from, more clarification or direction from the U.S. Treasury's office. So I anticipate our meetings may get, may potentially increase, or we'll have something more available. But they don't anticipate having some of those guidelines for another 2 to 3 weeks from the U.S. Treasury. So that's where we are kind of waiting on that. I do want to again recognize all the people that have lost their lives or been affected by COVID-19, and do ask that folks take a moment of silence this afternoon at 1:30. And if you're still looking for a vaccine, they are available. Just go on to the Story County Board of Health's website, or our website, that will take you to the Story County, our local public health, with all the locations that we're providing vaccines. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Merkin? Aye. Basil? Aye. Hens? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.